Cool.
Yeah. I was recently at a banquet for Walleyes for Tomorrow, and I had a good conversation, long conversation, with a young person about putting trees in the water for habitat for fish. And as part of that conversation, I realized that some people don't really know that much about trees. And what our discussion was whether a green tree or a dead tree was a better tree to haul out in the lake. Well, any tree is better than no tree, let's put it that way. But if you pull a dead tree out that's been dead and dehydrated for some point in time, like now in Wisconsin, we have a lot of dead ash trees. And as the ash tree stands there, the bark splits and falls off. So when you haul out a dead tree like that and put it in the water, you're doing it for a couple things. I like to call it aquatic food plots. The sunken tree will provide a carbon source for algae to grow on, and then the algae in turn attracts snails, various invertebrates, and other things, which provide a food source for small fish or even big fish, depending on the kind of fish you're talking about. But in a tree, you've got three parts essentially to a tree. You've got the heartwood, which is what you make lumber out of, and then you've got the sapwood, and then you have the bark. And when you bring out a dead tree and you sink it, even the bark and the sapwood that are on that, when it rehydrates, it sloughs off. It doesn't stay put. So now all you have is just the heartwood, and even the twigs have heartwood that is developing in them. So this part of the tree is not what we would say the most optimum form of nourishment for other organisms to live on. And that's what got me talking to him about the benefit of hauling a live tree out and sinking a live tree. Trees, when they're growing, they take up water, and in the process of photosynthesis, they use carbon dioxide and they produce sugars, which goes back to the root system. It's flowing down through it's called the xylem layer, which is right up, it's between the heartwood and the bark. And they store these sugars over the winter, and that's what keeps the tree alive in the wintertime. It's their nutrient source. That's why in the spring of the year, all these sugars start coming up in maple trees, and you harvest the sap, which is water and these sugar compounds that were produced the year before, and you get maple syrup out of it. But if you take a tree that's a green tree and you take it out and you sink it, and all of these nutrients are now underwater, and it makes a much better food source for all the organisms that might grow on these trees. The bark doesn't slough off, and the cambium layer, which is underneath the bark, between the bark and the heartwood, is just full of nutrients. So if a person has a choice between a dried up old dead tree and say a tree that lightning hits maybe, or gets blown over by a storm or something like that, rather than chopping it up and running it through a wood chopper and disposing of it, if you could make an arrangement to have someone pull it out into the lake and sink it, it makes very good food plots, aquatic food plots for other organisms, as well as a place for fish to make their living in and or around, and for perch to spawn on in the spring of the year. So I decided, mention that green trees, any tree is better than none, but green trees are preferable if you have the chance to sink green trees to produce habitat for fish. Thank you.